Hello, everyone. My name is Jade, and I am a healing artist, a yoga therapist, and a Western tropical astrologer, as well as a licensed esthetician here in the state of Colorado. And today I am going to be doing a series of videos discussing how to read a natal chart, what a natal chart is, and how to find your big three. So, if that is of interest to you, let's go for a little ride together. So today I am doing a chart, and for a chart to exist, we need three things. So the first thing we need is the time you were born. You can find that on your birth certificate. The most accurate time is the best time. If you don't have your birth chart and you only have an idea, we can use that. But the exact time is best. And then having a location, so where you were born and the date you were born. So the time, the date, and the location. Those are the three things that we need to be able to pull up a chart that looks like this. So if you've never seen a chart like this before, it can look really confusing and lots of symbols and signs and lines and really not knowing where to start. So what I like to do is to start with the big things first. So I'm going to draw your attention to the big wheel that looks like a pie chart. And if you notice, there are segments in this pie chart labeled 1 through 12, and each of those segments is a house. Each of those houses has a signature or a placement in life that we work through and deal with on our daily basis. Then you have these glyphs, that's what they're called. They're called glyphs. And they are on the outer edge of the pie. And those glyphs relate to the planets. So they are signs or symbols that relate to each of the planets. So for example, the sun is a little circle with a bigger circle around it. To see the key for where the planets are, we can look to this box to the left-hand side, this nice large box in the upper left-hand corner, and that shows you the key to all of the glyphs. So this is really helpful information because some of these symbols may look like Greek and you may not have any idea what they represent. So this key really helps us to understand what is that squiggly line. So starting from the sun and moving all the way down, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, which are our personal planets. And then we start with the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We also have the true node represented here along with Chiron. Chiron is known as the wounded healer and is shaped like a key and tends to be the key to unlocking our healing when we look at the chart. So this is what was going on the moment you were born in the celestial bodies above you, the cosmic dance that was happening at the moment that you were born, the conversations that these celestial bodies were having when you were born. So when we look at this chart, we see 12 different segments representing 12 different houses. We see planets scattered along this inner pie chart. Some of them are clustered together, as we notice here. We see clusters of planets in the second house. We see clusters of planets in the ninth house. Whenever we have a cluster of 4 or more planets, that's called a stellium. It's a lot of energy happening in that particular house. Now, as we take our awareness further out from the circle to the outer rim and the outer edge of the circle, we see signs that may be more familiar to us. These are the zodiac constellations. So in the sky above us, these planets are moving. And as they move, they enter into different constellations as they are in rotation. And this is a snapshot of where they were, their conversations and their dance that was happening. So now that we kind of have a broader view of what this chart is representing, houses, planets, and placements, with the zodiac signs as far as what house they are in and what constellation they are in, and knowing which planet is which by this key over here. So that kind of gives us some basics to work with. So right off the bat, if we don't want to do anything more or dive into this massive pie chart and all these other little graphs anymore, the simplest thing to just learn what your moon is or your rising is or where your Venus is, you have this information right here at your fingertips. Looking at the little small box, the left-hand side, where we have all the planets labeled from the sun all the way down to the nodes of the true node and Chiron, you have their glyphs. And then right next to that, you have the degree and the zodiac sign constellation that is associated with where it's at. So in this particular birth chart, we can look at the sun and we see the sun is at 24 degrees Gemini. We can just look at this box and not look over at this wheel if this wheel is feeling really confusing to you right off the bat. This is just a great way to tease out some information that you can use to then look into more self-discovery as you, what does this mean? But you can't even ask the question of what does this mean if you don't know where your moon is or what your rising is or how that's having an impact on you. So if we're just looking at what the sun is, we see the sun is at 24 degrees Gemini. If we want to correlate this graph over here to this pie chart, we come over here and look for this, either the sun glyph, which is what I like to do, is look for the planetary glyph. And then I can see what house it's in, which is in the 9th house. Very important to know this. And it's in the sign of Gemini. I'm going to do some deeper videos and some shorts on each of the zodiac signs and each of the houses, just so that you can have a little more information and do some deeper self-exploration on your own to find out the different elements and associations and powerful energies that are associated with each of these planets and how they are affecting you personally. So we look at this chart and we see the sun over here in the 9th house. We also see that the sun is having a big house party. That's what I like to call these. So there is a lot of energy in the 9th house. And the 9th house represents philosophy, adventure, travel, higher education. It's esoteric. It's travel to faraway places, not necessarily short trips. And in the sign of Gemini, also ruling communication and travel. So that could be an emphasis, a strong desire, traveling, moving, higher education, foreign lands, philosophy. There's a lot of adventure in this house placement. So we have the sun, and then we also have Venus and Mercury. So you have three of the personal planets all together having kind of a pretty heavy conversation. Venus and Mercury and the sun all in the 9th house of Gemini, which rules philosophy and adventure. So Venus wants to express itself in those ways. Venus feels comfortable in learning and higher education, seeks that to fulfill Venus. And Mercury wants to communicate about those things. So this is a really strong placement and desire for the spiritual, esoteric, foreign travel, higher education, learned. This is the realm of universities. And interestingly enough, within this big house party, we have Chiron in the mix here. So Chiron is, as I mentioned earlier, the wounded healer. and is shaped like a key. The glyph is kind of shaped like a key and is giving us an indication of where some of our wounds are. So there may be a feeling of an inability to pursue these more adventurous and philosophical pursuits. There may have been some hiccups to having this need met, or feeling as though there is a full 100% feeling of having this area in your life at a completion. There is an obstacle here, or a wound here, or something that is highlighting what the sun desperately, the sun is striving for this. Venus, the planet of desire and divine femininity and her ultimate expression of beauty, is here. And the way that you want to communicate, or this person wants to communicate, is also here, all in this ninth house ruled by Gemini. So it's all really good information. There is an understanding when we look at charts that we have the ability to remove judgment, because this is when we entered the world. This is part of our signature as we move through life. And these are the natal aspects. So this is just like an essence of a blueprint and an ability to see where your strengths are and where things are difficult or requiring more attention and focus throughout life, or things that will come up over and over again in order for you to sort of take hold of and deal with. So we learned that the sun is in Gemini. We also learned that there is a big house party in conjunction with the sun here in the ninth house in the sign of Gemini. And then we're going to look at the moon. So we know the sun has a lot going on. This person emulates, there's a lot of Venus, since the sun and Venus are having a really close connection here. There is a very beautiful sense of self, or presents as a very beautiful person. In the traditional sense of beauty, because that's Venus. And Venus next to the sun is saying that there's a beauty in how we present physically to the world, and an element of communication that's there as well. So that's the energy that's happening with the sun. As we look for the moon, which is our inner emotional self, we see the moon is in the fourth house. The fourth house represents home. It represents relationships with our parents. It represents motherhood, and is ruled by the house of Cancer. It's native ruler. This house for you, for this particular person, is in the sign of Capricorn. So the moon in the sign of Capricorn is an earth sign in the first house. And Capricorn is an archetype of reserved stability, structure, time. Saturn rules time. Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn represents fatherhood, and that's right in the fourth house, which is represented by motherhood. So there is an interesting conversation that's happening here. The fourth house is how we nurture ourselves. And with the moon in Capricorn, There is a strong desire to manage the home. There's a lot of energy in the home. We tend to look at where our driving force is when we look at where the moon placement is. So the moon is in the fourth house. So the energy is directed towards the home. That is where most of the energy is funneled through life, is in this area and section of home. When we look at the rising sign, you can see the rising sign is represented by this AC, which is called ascendant, which is the dark black horizontal line that moves across horizontally throughout the pie chart from 1 to 6. So this represents the horizon of when you were born, what was on the horizon and what on either end of the 180-degree horizon that we have. So the AC is representing what we're moving towards. And the DC represents where we've been, and also represents an illumination into partnerships and marriage. It's what you are naturally attracted to or naturally bringing into your life in terms of partnership and marriage. So those are really great things to know. And then you can tease out some more of the energy of what's going on there. So this person's ascendant is at 0 degrees Libra. And then you would have your descendant on 0 degrees of Aries. There's a very initiatory sign. It's a fire sign, and it is a pioneer. So you would be looking for a maverick of sorts, male or female, someone who is bold and passionate and can sort of really take charge and have leadership qualities and lead the way forward. Aries are it's a cardinal sign, so it's an initiating sign, initiates spring when we enter into Aries season. There's a lot of fire. There's a burst of energy here in Aries. So that's what's on the descendant. On the ascendant is Libra. So striving towards balance is a theme for this person throughout life. Seeking balance, both financially and physically and emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Balance on all levels. That is what the desire is to strive for. The next little house party that I'd like to bring our attention to is in the second house. Now, I find this interesting because the second house is the house of wealth, and it can show us how we can make our monies. What is in alignment for us to make our money. So, and then you have Saturn up in this mix. Saturn is also an indicator of how we're making our money. I'd like to bring your attention to this is in the sign of Scorpio. So Scorpio kind of gets a bad rap because it is it really is. It's the dark, it's the underworld of all of the zodiac signs. It's overly concerned with sex, and because of its strong desires. Scorpio has unbridled, passionate desires that must be fulfilled in order for them to feel like they can have release or have balance in their life. So you have Mars, Saturn, and Pluto, the three brothers in Scorpio. So this masculine energy is very geared up towards exerting and Not only is Scorpio associated with sex, because most of us do know that, but it's also associated with birth, death, inheritance, rebirth, transformation, the underworld, secrets. Scorpio's main purpose is to transform. So there's an element of transformation here within the second house of wealth. Saturn, Mars, and Pluto. Pluto is about death and also rules Scorpio. So you have the ruler of the planet within the sign of the planet. So there's a lot of uncovering and personal investigation that you could do in learning about this conversation that Pluto, Saturn, and Mars are all having together in the second house in Scorpio. Mars is a masculine sign. It's your drive, it's your ambition. And there is a drive and ambition for money and for wealth. And it is concerned with transformation. It's concerned with things that are not pretty. They're not, it's not necessarily true. It's not that they're not pretty. They're not superficial. Scorpio energy is not concerned with like the light things on the surface. Not wanting to make money being a barista. You know what I mean? Like the light little things. This person would do well to make money in ways where we're really kind of digging deep and we're doing things that could be legal because Saturn rules legal things. And in a man's world, I mean, that's just coming to me right now, but you've got Scorpio and these three planets. So it's like there's a very heavy masculine signature here and the way to make money. So you could take that in multiple ways. You could be making money in terms of the legal system, paralegal, anything dealing with like judges or just legal things. Any other male dominated industry, which there are so many of, could be an opportunity for this person to be making good money. And it doesn't necessarily have to be masculine, but I would say structured. Structure is important here because you have Saturn and Pluto and Mars. There is a deeper conversation that's happening here. There is a death signature when you have Pluto in this area where that could be inheritances, where money comes through inheritances from a death, because Pluto's representing death and a rebirth. But Saturn in the mix is really showing you what's taking discipline. There needs to be discipline in the second house in order for it to be profitable. There has to be some sort of parameter or boundary because Saturn's all about boundaries. So there has to be a boundary within the second house or within the realm to be able to make this profitable for you. So I hope that was really helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions about more things in this chart. I will dive into just a few more things just so you understand what these other little boxes are and not feel like I'm leaving you hanging in the dark here. So if we move down from the box to the left-hand side and move down to the middle box, you can see there are the letters C, F, and M at the top, which stands for cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And then you can see F, A, E, and W on the Y side of that graph, and that stands for fire, air, earth, and water. So every single zodiac sign is associated with an archetype, with an element, with a direction. It's its signature. So if we start with Aries, Aries is a fire sign. It is a cardinal sign. It's initiating energies. When we move to the other fire signs, so we have Aries, we have Leo, and we have Sagittarius. So if we're just looking at fire signs so that we can understand this idea just a little deeper. So the Aries is a cardinal sign, Leo is a fixed sign, and Sagittarius is mutable. And it moves like that throughout the entire zodiac. So Taurus is a fixed sign. Taurus is an earth sign. So we have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So Taurus is fixed. Virgo is mutable, and Capricorn is cardinal. Capricorn is cardinal because it's initiating a season. It initiates winter. Now, if we look at the air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Gemini, excuse me, is mutable. Libra is cardinal, and Aquarius is fixed. And we moved that through in our water signs as well. So then we have Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Cancer is the cardinal sign. It's initiating summer. Then we have Scorpio, which is fixed. And then we have Pisces, which is mutable. So that's kind of giving you an understanding of how those are correlated together. Now, if we look at the box, we can get an idea of a bit about our personality. That's kind of what I feel like this box shows us. So right off the bat, I see there's a lot of cardinal energy, which is a lot of initiating energy. And I see a lot of mutable energy. And that energy is all in the air signs. And you can kind of see like where the energy of this person is. So there is a lot of air in this chart. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of those planets in Gemini and points that we had in Gemini. And we also have Pluto, which is in the sign of Libra at 29 degrees. So that's interesting as we're looking at that a little bit closer. This house party in the second house, but you also have Pluto right on the anaretic degree of Libra. Pluto is a slow moving planet. So this is more of a like community signature. So people born within a certain number of years within each other are going to have Pluto in that section of Libra. So you are still at that final degree of Libra, and Pluto in a Libra signature is very concerned with things being fair and just. Equality is incredibly important, and Pluto in Libra will feel like when something is off and there is an unfairness. There is a huge root for the underdog here with Pluto and Libra. Still, that being said, according to this chart, it's still in the second house of wealth and does represent there could be, energies related from inheriting money from death or having something that when something is in a major transformation, it could be a process of giving this person wealth. Saturn in the second house and Mars, these two having a conversation. They're the two kind of like heavy hitters. So those are really great things you can further dive into. Have some great books that you can look into as well as the old Google search to now you have this information at your fingertips and you can just type in like, what does it mean to have Mars in the second house? What is that? What more information can you tease from that? Because this is really an element of self-discovery. I'm going to see some things, but as you look at it over and over again, and as other people look at it, new things will come to your awareness. There's so much information that's here that taking it little pieces at a time and giving yourself an opportunity to digest and be able to come back, I think is really important. So last final thing before I go, we mentioned planets, glyphs, and where the key is to that. We mentioned the elements that associated with each of the signs, and we also went over directions and how those make an impact on personality and direction in life. And then let's finish up with this last little triangular graph here at the very bottom. And that's giving you a display of what the aspects are. So the aspects are like geometrical shapes that we can pull out of these alignments that the planets are having with each other. So going back to the idea that this is celestial bodies having a dance and a conversation with one another, that's what these lines represent. So looking at the side angle from the left to the right, we see all those glyphs again. We see the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars. We see all those going all the way down. And then we can kind of correlate and see what's going on here. So let's look at some of these oppositions that are happening. We have oppositions and we have conjunctions. We also have sextiles and quincunxes and trines, and there's a lot of different energies that are here. Again, great information that you have at your fingertips to see what does this mean for me. So if I'm looking at this really interesting, let's see, Saturn, looking over here, Saturn and Mars are having this conversation here. And then you see this red line from the sun coming down to Neptune. And you can kind of see, so you see the square box, you see a triangular box. So the sun is trine Pluto. So the sun is trine Pluto. That is a trine. Sun, trine Pluto. And it looks like Pluto is also trine Venus. We have this aspect coming in here. So you can really kind of tease out even more information of what's going on here and get to like learn so much more about the inner psychology and the inner workings of who you are so that we can have a loving conversation, releasing judgment, and just being able to have an awareness of why some of the things have been happening in our lives, why we're experiencing some of the things that we're experiencing, and giving ourselves a bit of a break to realize like these are the cards I got, right? I can't trade them in and get new ones. Like these are the ones that I have. This is what I have. There is always shifting. This is just the natal signature. You can look at your progressed chart and see where the planets are now and how that is having a conversation with your natal points. I hope that was really helpful for you. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. Thanks so much. Thank you.